Welcome to this podcast on digital responsibility. There's a vibrant community across the world at the moment driving forward corporate digital responsibility, which includes a range of aspects from digital ethics, digital for the environment, sustainability, digital well-being, inclusion, accessibility, and more. My name is Rob Price, one of the founders of Corporate Digital Responsibility back in 2017. If you'd like to know more, have a look at the website corporatedigitalresponsibility.net. Welcome to episode 4 of the Digital Responsibility podcast in season 4. And tonight I'm delighted to be joined by Jutta and Kai from Identity Valley in Germany. Jutta, would you like to start with the introductions with yourself, and then we'll hand across to Kai?
Thank you, Rob. Thanks for the invitation. Thanks for having us. So, I'm Jutta. I'm the founder and CEO of Identity Valley. And why do we think we need an Identity Valley? Might sound familiar to you. So, of course, it's an answer and evolution to Silicon Valley. So, we want to put humans and our identity at the center of digital transformation. And so this is our mission. And our credo is it's all about trust. So we want to bring trust into all the digital solutions and services based on European values, to keep it short.
Excellent. And Kai?
Thanks, Rob. Thanks for having us. So I'm Kai, together with Jutta, leading Identity Valley. I do have a legacy in cybersecurity, so worked in cybersecurity for quite some years. And already there, we thought about trust and how to enable trust, and believe that cybersecurity is one major ingredient, which I still believe it is. But over the time, we realized that there's more to digital responsibility than just cybersecurity. And that's exactly what we're now trying to pioneer from Identity Valley with our digital responsibility goals, where we describe what else is there and how do you build that digital responsibility, well, in not only the digital space, but in the space, because you cannot differentiate too much between real and digital anymore anyways. And that's what we're doing, and we're having a lot of fun doing that.
And I'm sure that for anyone listening at this point, they'll have already spotted the link between the things and the passions that you have and the whole corporate digital responsibility movement. And I think one of the things that I found every time that we've spoken is that there is such a great degree of synergy between the work that you're doing and the work that those in CDR, or indeed kind of some of the other activities around the space, where we're looking at the use of data and digital around creating more positive outcomes for society, hence the big overlap. Now, you touched there on the digital responsibility goals, and certainly I remember when Christopher and I certainly got involved in CDR at the beginning of 2017-18, and we had these conversations at the time around the SDGs and the potential need for an 18th SDG to cover digital in a more effective way. Now I'm delighted actually to see the conversations that you're having around digital responsibility goals and the connection, but you're doing it in a slightly different way, because it's the focus around something extended as an addition. But tell us a bit more about the journey to the digital responsibility goals, how you got there, how you defined them, and perhaps also touch on the link with the EU in that conversation as well.
Yeah, thanks for that question. So I do think every one of us working in this field of digital responsibility came to this point differently. And I myself have been working as a digital consultant for more than 10 years, working on digital innovations, and traveled to Silicon Valley a lot, and started thinking of an answer from Europe based on European values, as I already said. And so for me, being a consultant, trying to help executives understand the power of digital transformation and also the challenges, but the idea of defining a simple strategy that everyone is able to follow, to understand, to agree, to start with. That was with me for many years. So I figured out and tried out many methodologies, working with executives, trying to bring them on that path. And so everything I kind of tried out there then helped to think about the need of a simple picture, a simple framework that maybe will be recognized as something that we already know. And this is why we started thinking about adding some goals, so to say, to the sustainable development goals or sustainable development goals, and started thinking about creating them in a similar look and feel, because we are already used since several years now to the Sustainable Development Goals, and this is obviously super helpful for the whole world to have some goals, and even if you start with one of them. And so this is what brought us to the creation of the Digital Responsibility Goals. And as you heard, so Kai was deeply into cybersecurity, and of course it was clear that this is one of the technological keys to having some goals out there. But everyone's talking about AI and ethics, but there's something underlying. So it's about algorithms. They need to be trustworthy. So we started thinking and talking with many experts and created the Digital Responsibility Goals. And we are very happy to be also talking to the European Commission now and European Parliament. But maybe it's even also super interesting to listen to Kai's way to come to that recognition that we need a picture like that. So I do think your work, Rob, what you are doing, the manifesto, that's super helpful. I think our picture is super helpful. The Sustainable Development Goals are helpful. Somehow this all needs to be together. And I think if we can reach one or two persons out there being responsible for something and being aware, okay, we can do something in that field, then it's worth it. So we have to do it.
You're absolutely right. And of course, many organizations, my previous organization was well used to reporting against the SDGs, to articulate the business operations in the context of the impact it had on the planet. Mm-hmm. So I guess the key thing here with your 7 digital responsibility goals is that natural step for an organization to then go to start thinking about how would we report the impact that we have and the actions that we are taking in each of those 7, and almost benchmarking that in some way. So Kai, perhaps kind of picking up the story around what you then do with them in an organization and how they would be used.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for making that transition, because that's exactly what we have been thinking about, how organizations, and I say organizations on purpose, so I don't limit it just to the corporates, but organizations, how they can pick up such framework. For them to be able to pick it up, it needs to work somehow in a fashion that they already know. So you don't want to create the resistance to change on the process level. You want, so at best it fits somehow into their organization, into something that they know, or maybe it creates even a resemblance to the Sustainable Development Goals, which guides sustainable development of a lot of organizations, be it corporates, be it governmental organizations, be it entire countries, right? So that's a fascinating thing, actually, to have that framework. Now, the digital responsibility goals make use of that analogy. And what we hear very often is that people see them and they say, it works like the SDGs. Okay, I understand it. So they have a frame of reference that fits very well. And then only they realize, it's in a totally different field. And then step number 2 of what we also try to incorporate is to not reinvent the wheel in these distinct goals. So sometimes, when we talk about cybersecurity, for example, we are building on a body of knowledge that has been shaped for 30 years almost, right? Cybersecurity is quite old, and it's already has reached a certain maturity level. Of course, you still need to improve it, but no need to reinvent that one. There's some other fields, however, in the digital responsibility goals that are still in the infancy, or almost, right? Even something like trustworthy algorithms or trustworthy AI is still shaping somehow. So you need to be a little bit more careful there. Another field that we have as a goal is data fairness or data governance. And there we hear a lot of questions. So what actually is it? So you feel like probably that's even more immature, if you will, but still you have to do something there. So the idea really is to present something that is a clear framework. It fits somehow, at least on a general level, into the organizational and processual structures of organizations. And then here's the key, you also need to define it in such a way that it is not only actionable, but also measurable. Because if you want to inspire change, you also need to enable the measurement of said change, because else, how do you tell that an organization improved? No way. So you need to build in that measurement, and then change can happen. So that those are kind of some lines of thinking that we have in there.
So if we envision the SDGs and the digital responsibility goals set side by side, and organizations having a greater awareness of those, what do you think the things that need to be done are that mean that organizations adopt with passion and intent something of this nature? Because I think the common area that we discuss regularly is whether we're talking about the work that you're doing or the broader CDR work, or indeed other similar initiatives, it's how do you actually drive adoption by businesses such that they are doing something actively that moves the needle forward in terms of the positive impact that they are having. Because I think all of us would say that's the most important thing, and actually it doesn't matter particularly what the mechanism is, so long as they're doing something. So what would I guess that goes back to the relationship that you've got with the EU, in the sense that if there is like the UN introduced the sustainable development goals, if there's some regulatory body behind them to say this is a good thing, this is consistent with the principles that we're driving across Europe in the way in which we utilize digital technologies and create an innovative capability across Europe or even beyond. That's one way, but how do we make it real? How do we get organizations to change? What are your thoughts on that, Jutta?
Well, so we just had a conversation with the European Commission last week, and as you know, they proposed the European Digital Rights and Principles, and they are trying to have all the member states committing to at least the idea of having a proposal like that by mid of this year. So they do see the urgency that we need a picture like that, and they do see that we are not alone. So it needs all of us, and this is what I do think is key. So the topic of awareness is a really big one. So and also this is why it needs many organizations like yours and ours, and also, of course, initiatives from the European Commission and Parliament and others. We are working with many other civil society organizations, and everyone is looking at the topic of having a value-based digital economy from different angles. So some of them are mostly focused on saving our democracy, and of course this is part of that, and this is of course the topic of everything, and so everyone is talking in different languages, and by languages I don't mean German or English. So it's a different language being in a civil society organization, being in the European Commission, being in a corporate. So everyone uses different words and has a different understanding of digital transformation. And so this is why I do think first, we need to create much more awareness that we need something like the SDGs in the digital world, and that we have to work on all these topics, and that it's okay to start with one of them. So if you start with one of the SDGs, that's fine. So, but let's keep it going. So I think it needs a movement, a big movement.
And I think it's such an important point around awareness and momentum. So, and I've seen that over the last 5 years. Some of these things I talked about 5 years ago and got blank responses in an audience. It wasn't something that was important at that point. Often something that people thought could be, but not yet. Now there's waves of people that are recognizing that there is a need for things to change. So Kai, what would you see happening over the next kind of year or so in the context of either continued conversations with the Commission or indeed the evolution of the digital responsibility goals? What's the next steps for you in bringing them to life?
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Well, of course, there are many steps. So it's only picking up pace what we do, and that's super positive. And we see how this idea of digital responsibility and especially of giving it the framework resonates very well on different layers or on different levels. One you mentioned is, of course, the European Commission, where we will continue the dialogue and at best also, of course, have an impact there and maybe would be able to influence a little bit the line of thinking of not only Europe, but look, SDGs, we said, is kind of our inspiration. So, of course, we would love to see this something for the global society, where all of us are going in said direction. We, of course, want to inspire organizations to go in this direction and really make a change. We are also involved in a couple of research projects where we want to demonstrate that this actually creates not only better projects, but also better tools and solutions, right? This thinking along the digital responsibility goals. So we want to prove that this is something that works. Another focus areas for us is, of course, the measurement as such, right? Where we are kind of already venturing into defining guiding criteria and then measurements and really make it measurable so that you can gauge how responsible is a given tool, a solution, or an organization, which for us serves as a primer to how trustworthy is said tool, solution, or organization. So that is super fascinating, but still also a lot of work to do, right? It's not easy because others have tried before, and they tell us it's not easy, and when we say, yeah, let's get it on. And ultimately, it's about people. And I want to create the link or make the link to what you just said, that 5 years ago, it was difficult to bring that message to people, right? Because they didn't feel it. But now we realize more and more that people feel that there are certain negative externalities in the digital space. They feel it. A lot of people feel this and they see it and they realize it, be it the way that social media is kind of behaving by and large, or the fake news, the hate speech, these kind of things they feel. So they're looking for answers. And what we see and what we've heard in our discussions while we go on stage or so is that this might be an answer. So it provides hope. And in the end, it's about the people. So really, I'm inspired by talking about the tech topic every day and meeting so many people, because in the end, it's really about people and creating a movement, and they all go in a direction. And if we can only reach 1 or 2 or 3 people in each and every organization, they will make the change. They will be the ones being able to change the organization. I think that's the future of what we're looking into.
And I think there's an interesting point around consumer awareness and consumer behaviors, and you touched on an area in things like fairness and trust, privacy, protection of their data. And you're right, others have been trying things. I spoke to Ninian on a previous podcast of the work she's doing with the Swiss Digital Initiative and the badging the measurement of effectiveness of organizations and awarding them a badge that gives the consumer an indication of, can I trust this organization in my interactions? Do you think, in terms of, I mean, obviously the SDGs is a UN activity, a global activity. So have you thought about how you might bridge I mean, Jutta, you said it yourself, European principles, European values embedded in the digital responsibility goals. Is the intent that they remain European, or do you envision that that's something that actually is also relevant to the global community as well?
Well, of course, it's a global challenge and chance. I do think, from my observations within the digital economy, that there are different approaches right now out there. So if you look into Silicon Valley in the United States, of course, this is because this is a because we can mentality. So they created all these technologies. They came up with the iPhone, changed our communication completely. And so from my point of view, if you look at the different areas in our world, so maybe the United States are like it because we can. And if you look into another direction, it's, many technologies are used to know about your citizens, which is super scary to people who live in Europe. And so this is, if you can just say, so maybe they are focused on the scoring of their citizens and not on using technologies to improving their lives. And so I do think there's a big chance for Europe to be the leading power to help the whole world to create technologies that care for people. So this, because we care, maybe something that lies into our DNA, and it might be helpful to authentically create a movement like this. And I do think so. My personal observation over the past years was that when I started thinking about, okay, I've been traveling to Silicon Valley, super excited for several years, and I wanted to know about every technology. And then something kind of happened in my brain, and some mentors of mine also were thinking about, there must be something different. And so what happened some years ago was something that led myself to stop working as a normal consultant in digital technologies and thinking about, okay, let's create something that is different. And from the very beginning, there were some people who recognized this and supported this. And it's still that I recognize there are some foundations and philanthropists out there who really think about where investments have to go. And of course, it was a hard time to set up Identity Valley and to be able to live from that. But now I think we are really at that moment when some foundations and even research institutes had some deeper insights into what is going on in the civil society world, what topics relating to the digital world are organizations working on, and so it somehow seems to come together right now. And I think those philanthropists who started investing in ideas around sustainability are now thinking about digital responsibility, and so I do hope that we will be able to bring all of these stakeholders together, and we somehow started with that.
I think there's a really important point, which is the relationship with politics. And I don't mean party politics. I mean political and economic environments do govern how we behave. So I remember speaking about these type of subjects in 2016, and of course it was the time of Brexit, and it was the time of Trump. And somebody actually said to me, Rob, you can't talk about technology and politics, which I fundamentally still disagree with, because there is this kind of link, and you're right to highlight, I think, the US and China in terms of the progress that they've made in terms of the tech innovation space, and equally Europe finding its own space as well amongst that. I think there's a really important part that I always talk about in the context of CDR, which is CDR is not saying you can't do these things. It's about being aware of the potential consequences, but actually it's also about innovating to fix and address some of those big challenges. And I think it's the same thing here. And of course, when we've talked about it, we've said, well, we will absolutely do the correlation of the kind of digital responsibility goals and the CDR, whether we're talking about CDR in terms of the International Manifesto or otherwise. And I've suddenly realised, although we've touched on that seven's a magic number, isn't it? 7 principles in the International CDR Manifesto, 7 digital responsibility goals. We haven't actually said what they all are. So how about, as we kind of approach the end, Kai, would you like to just go through the 7 digital responsibility goals as they stand today?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to. So the 7 goals, before I tell you the 7 goals, there's one thing that we had in mind while developing them. They're not by chance in that order, but there's a certain order to it that we thought about when we were looking at it. It starts with something very human, and that is literacy, that's knowledge. We do believe that, number one, people need digital literacy to navigate in the digital space. If people we mean by and large, preschool to post-retirement, people are not equipped with basic digital understanding of the opportunities, but also the risks in the digital space, they will not be able to responsibly navigate the digital space. Number one. Number two, cybersecurity. Kind of for us, a little bit the technical baseline or background for responsible digital technologies. Now, I know cybersecurity is not only technical, it's also, again, about people and processes and so forth, but it has something technical to it. It's a technical discipline, right? So we need cybersecurity to prevent any kind of manipulation or even misuse of the digital space from a technical point of view. Number 3, privacy. We believe there's a right to privacy for individuals, and it needs to be guarded and defended in the digital space. There are some good regulations there in that field, which is super interesting, but we believe one could even go a step further. It's something very precious and important to mankind and to the individuals. Number 4 is about data fairness. Here we talk about data that is not person related, right? A lot of data is actually not person related. And we believe that also we need a certain form of protection, if you will, and we call it fairness. We need to be careful. It also has a little bit of an, economic element to it. We need to be careful how we deal with data. It has a value. So the ones that provide the data or use it also need to benefit from that value jointly, right? It's a little bit about collaboration also. Then number 5 is trustworthy algorithms, where we thought about kind of the data processing. How can we create it in such a way that it is trustworthy? On purpose, we didn't call it trustworthy AI, because AI is just a very sophisticated version of algorithms. We think no matter if it's AI or not, it needs to be trustworthy. Of course, the trustworthiness elements in AI become a little bit more complex. That's true, but the basis is somewhat similar. Number 6 is an interesting one because it's transparency. Again, that's where people dig a little bit deeper sometimes and say, why is transparency an own one? And we say it is because in a digital world that is not tangible, transparency becomes all the more important, right? It's more difficult to perceive the practices that are happening in the digital world. You cannot see them necessarily, you cannot touch them. So you need a different form of transparency to still guarantee responsibility and trustworthiness. And then number 7 is a big one. Again, very human-centered because it's about human agency and protection of our identity. In number 7, and here's where there's some of the big questions need to be answered. So is that technology actually good for individuals, for mankind, and is it creating welfare? This is where we ask the big questions, and it's a very important one. It's kind of the bracket, if you will, closing the bracket, this human bracket of the digital responsibility goals that started with education and knowledge, and now it ends with asking the big questions. And those are the seven goals, and we believe and we hope they paint a pretty holistic picture of what responsibility in a digital age means.
That's fantastic, and I'm sure that anyone who's listened to the many previous episodes that we've done will recognise those 7 themes through the work that many people have been doing. So they certainly make sense to me. Comes with time, I think my final question for both of you is to kind of think about, for anyone listening now who's thinking, how can I get involved, or how could I maybe help bring the digital responsibility goals to life for them, whether they're in government somewhere, in an organization, in the private sector, in a charity, wherever they may be. What's the one thing that you would each recommend that they do, consider, read, look at, listen to help get a better understanding of making it real in their environment? Jutta, would you like to go first?
Yes, thank you. So we are talking about a moving target. So our work will never be done. So this is why, please reach out to us. And of course, we are currently updating our website, because the digital responsibility goals, we have been presenting them for the first time last year at the European Parliament, but then we haven't published some details about them until next week. So we will be having our strategy paper presented to the world on February 22nd, and from that day on, you will find the paper on our website. And we were able to set this up with a multi-stakeholder approach. You were part of this, and many other experts were part of the creation of that paper. And for us, this is a starting point, and as I said, a moving target, a living mission. So very much looking forward talking to everyone who wants to be helpful, who recognizes this is a topic we need to work on, and let's figure out how to best do this together.
Excellent. And Kai?
Yeah, building on that, it really is about collective impact. We are onto something that can only be changed if people work together, if they walk in a similar direction. And on purpose I say similar, because they don't have to walk in the same direction. But like you said, there's more and more people that feel and see that there's a need to do something, that we need to act now. And the people that listen to this podcast already took the first step, because obviously they're interested into the topic. So that's good. And if they then feel like doing something, reach out to us. We're super happy to, having more people that kind of are on this together with us. I think it's only growing. There's fun times ahead, because yes, it is fun if you can make a change and have an impact. And we're really trying to build something that, will create a better future for all of us, be it on sustainability and or on a more responsible digital space.
That's fantastic. So I just wanted to say thank you to you both for joining tonight and talking about your work, but actually also for doing the work that you're doing and being part of this wide and growing group of us. No matter how we actually articulate it, our intent is all the same. So thank you to both of you. It's much appreciated.
Thank you, Rob, and thanks to everyone involved, because exactly, we need so many people to work on that, and we're very happy to getting to know you and all the others. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot also from my side. It's great to meet all these people and learn from each other and work together. That's really what it is. Thank you.